Hello, everybody. I am busily clicking admit, so we're gonna give people a moment to join up here. In the meantime, I'm just gonna share my screen. I've got one little, just a thank you to our sponsors that I got to put up here. Um, so it's just great to have folks like TechStars, Name.com, and Honey, University of Colorado, and a number of other ones that are making this event possible. So if I could just figure out, we'll give me one moment here, and we'll get started. All right. So it looks like I was able to click fast enough to let everybody in here. So welcome everybody. So this is the Meet the IoT community event as part of this very interesting Boulder Startup Week. Um, so I'm Chris Meyer. I've been running the IoT track for gosh, what was that? 2014, so 6 years. I believe I said 7 years yesterday, but it's actually just been 6 years. So it's been incredible to see the growth of the community and some of the products and services that have come out of this, and then just to see the incredible progress that everybody's been making. So it's just such an honor to be able to continue to do this for everybody. So what the agenda is for this event is just give everybody a chance to kind of meet one another and try to mirror what we normally do with some of the happy hours and the other events that we've had in the past. So this is a fantastic time to have an ask. If you're working on a project that's involving connected devices, let us know what you're working on. If you're looking, or if you have a question and need some help, this is a wonderful community to be able to kind of get it out there and start to connect with other folks, other practitioners of the art, as it were. To kick things off, I'm just curious if anybody has something they want to voice up front. How are they handling with being in quarantine? I see some familiar names on this growing participant list here. But actually, Rich, because I'm looking at you right now, I might as well just put you on the hot seat here. You want to say hi and what SolderWorks is and how you're a part of the community?
Sure. Hey, everybody. See a few friendly faces in the photo collage here. But as Chris mentioned, I'm the founder and the head of SolderWorks. If you've never heard of us or you don't know anything about us, we're located here in Westminster, off of 36, over where they're building the new downtown Westminster. Hopefully, the economy allows it to continue to be built out. But we're actually a hybrid of a bunch of things. What's created the company, what created the business, is we are a consulting company. We do both software and hardware development. We, I think about 4 years ago, made the pivot into doing IoT development. We just saw that as kind of like you'll hear us say, hardware is the new software. And so we started getting more into that. But while we were doing that and we knew we needed to build out lab space, we actually built, which is beside me here, a 10,000 square foot, let's call it a shared workspace, where for the community, have opened up the doors through this innovation fund, where if you are a early stage hardware startup and you need a place to work, we have our lab space in the back. We have what we call a cutting room. And so in that we have, CNC machines. We also have small tools. We have a print room where we have kind of a print farm. We also have an SLA printer that we will allow people to use. And then we also have an engineering lab where we right now have 6 engineering workbenches with DMMs, some O-scopes, et cetera, there. So if you're an early stage hardware startup and you need a space to work, what we do, you can go to our website. You can apply for being accepted into the program, and basically it's free workspace. We also open up the ecosystem, so all our partners, whether they be, you know, Arrow, or we also, if you're doing any LoRa WAN work, we also have a strong partnership with MachineQ, you know, those types of things. And we kind of open up for that. That said, you know, on the consulting side, if you do have or you need help kind of getting over the hump, either on the software or the hardware side, you know, we do provide those professional services too.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich. Appreciate doing that synopsis there. So as part of my agenda here, I've got categories of help for anybody doing connected devices, categories like compliance, manufacturing, sourcing, development, like business validation, and some places and people that you can reach out to. And you know, SolderWorks being one of them is just a good one to be aware of. I see, and before Sean takes off, Sean, it's good to see you, even though that you're not local anymore, man.
Yeah, I down in New Orleans now.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see everybody back, and you know, reminding me of all the good things in Colorado.
Oh, good. I'm glad to be a part of that. So I wanted to call you out because if anybody needs some help with video work, are you still doing some consulting around that?
Yeah, I mean, my schedule's pretty booked as it is, but my biggest client is DigiKey, and I've been working a lot with tiny machine learning and microcontrollers, which, you know, isn't strictly IoT, but plays a big part in doing some edge AI computations. And I've been learning that and making content around that for video stuff. But yeah, I'm mostly freelance.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Sean and I had a conversation years ago when he was fragmenting off from SparkFun to focus on content creation and that type of stuff. So it's always good to see your face around these parts, as it were.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together.
Yeah, no, this is in times like this, I personally think that this is the best time for all of us just to be aware of who's doing what and how to reach out, because I know that we're missing the ability to just casually run into folks and be like, hey, do you know anybody that does X, Y, or Z? So I'm hoping that this can be a decent digital facsimile for that. So yeah, thanks, Sean. I'm happy that you're here and participating. So I'm curious if there's any. I want to open it up right now. If anybody has like an ask or a certain area that they might be struggling with, this is the perfect opportunity, because I've got a short list here, and it might be a good opportunity to bring those up individually instead of me just reading out a list. So if you have something, either enter in chat or just unmute and call it out. I know somebody's got something. If anybody has any resources for embedded TensorFlow Lite stuff, I've actually been messing around with one of these guys, the Google TPUs, on a Raspberry Pi, which has been a lot of fun. But this is just kind of like some side project stuff. If anybody has anything there, I'd be interested in talking about it.
Oh, I can tell you all about TensorFlow Lite.
Yeah, well, Sean, you and I might have to talk afterwards, and you might get a few more hits here shortly.
Yeah, I'm still learning it. It is quite the process. Like if you've played with TensorFlow a bit and it like just kind of works in Python, TensorFlow Lite is still very much an experimental thing when it comes to it does seem to work in like your Raspberry Pis and like your Corals and whatnot, but you try to throw it on like an Arduino or a microcontroller and it is the Wild West.
Yep, it definitely is, which has been my experience. So I'm glad that I'm not the only one.
Nope.
Awesome. Okay, well, if nobody wants to volunteer, I'm happy to continue with the content and calling some folks out.
I could maybe interject with a question. I'm Mike Henderson with GIC Magnetics, and I'm I guess new to the IoT community here. Can everyone hear me, by the way? Just make
Yep.
sure I'm not talking. Okay, excellent. So you mentioned compliance, and that sparked a question on my mind. I've got my business is centered around making products for they're actually sensors, magnetic field sensors for like power distribution companies. And it's in its early stages, but at this point, I'm probably looking to field some of these in the next several months to year. And one concern I've got is like FCC compliance. I've had some exposure to that in the past at other companies, and it took a little while to get through that phase, but I had not considered what it may be like these days to try to engage FCC compliance testing. So I didn't know if anyone had a notion of how one goes about that and what sort of things I need to be prepared to be ready, as I try to find that.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Mike. Appreciate kind of the context here. So I know that Rich has had experience with the EMI test lab, right? Right, Rich?
Yeah, those guys are great.
So EMI test lab, it's emitestlab.com. I'll drop the URL here into chat. But this is also the one that I know a number of other companies have used, is just kind of that pre-cert validation place. There's one that used to be in Westminster that had recently moved to San Diego called RF Response. Just shoot me a quick little note with your email, and I'm happy to do an introduction there as well. But those are a few in the area. Harris, you've popped up on my screen there. You have a question?
Yeah, well, I'd be happy to just kind of speak to that real quick. So are you designing your own PCBs for that, or are you using like off the shelf components for your product?
It's a mix. There's a few, like the processor's a single board computer, which is off the shelf, but I have my own circuit board as well. And it includes a DC converter, which I think may qualify it for requiring compliance testing. I was kind of hoping to just like, hey, if I just use off the shelf parts, maybe I don't have to do this at all, but I think I may be crossing the line.
Yeah. So my name's Harris. I'm not an engineer, although I've apparently dedicated my life to making money so that engineers can do things.
TV, Harris, it's fine.
Yeah. I've been in a variety of sales and marketing roles and go-to-market type stuff. And I've been through the process for a few products, 3D printers and computers and stuff. So there's an interesting thing here so you should definitely reach out to EMI Test Lab. The guy that runs it, his name is Dennis King. What's cool about Dennis is that he will like ride alongside you. So if you go to his website, you can tell that his business is doing so well that they're not spending money on marketing. And I don't mean that to offend Dennis.
Sorry, Dennis.
It is so retro that it's cool again. If you go to the website, you'll understand what I'm talking about, and you will not think I'm being a jerk. So people go back there time and time again for years. He's really good. But the interesting thing about having your own board is that typically the default would be to certify the whole system. But sometimes what happens when you are stacking a couple of different things together is that each thing is like just at the line. And so then when you combine them together, you just can't get them to pass together no matter what you do. So you can separately, individually certify. Basically, you try to like strip out as many things as possible just to get the measurement on your additional contribution from an RF perspective. That's what System 76 did for their Thalio computer, which is made in Denver. Because they had, GPU and CPU and RAM and power supply and all these other things. So that's a kind of a trick you can have up your sleeve. If you're going through the process, you're finding that you're hitting walls, because it may just literally not be possible when those things get stacked up together. So Dennis can help you figure it out. And then he will likely have some suggestions for you from a design perspective about the materials you're using that can help you be better. But I will tell you, I've spoken with folks that like engineers that make processors and stuff. They will tell you that the RF process is black magic. So be prepared for surprises. It's going to take longer than you expect. You will probably need to get a little creative. I've never met anyone who's really confident about understanding how it works. And the longer people seem to be in it, the more like confused they seem to be by the process. So just beware, there be dragons, but Dennis will get you across the finish line.
Yeah. And just to add some anecdotal stuff to this. So I had the opportunity to work with Harris back at Misty Robotics. And so we both saw a lot of what Harris is talking about, what the heck is going on. And then for whatever reason that solved it. And, it's just, there's a lot of that stuff. So definitely reaching out for help is advisable.
Yeah. If you can do it on your own, you should be on a boat somewhere.
Yeah. Fantastic. So while Harris is here and on the screen, I wanted to call out. So if anybody needs help with sales and marketing to a degree, Harris, or just primarily sales?
Yeah, I mean, the go-to-market stuff, I'm not like a brand genius, and I don't do the like digital optimization with your cost per click. And, I think that each of those are each of their own disciplines, but kind of just like general purpose go-to-market. I work with founders and small business owners on basically building system, really just ways to try to grow the business in a way that's sort of cross-disciplinary. I work a lot with bootstrap companies.
So I'm hoping that, well, maybe not hoping, but there's probably a good number of folks here that are doing exactly that. So I just wanted to Harris you out, that just being a good resource for the community. And for those of you that aren't aware, Harris and Sean have a podcast, the Hello Blink Show, which is great. I've been really enjoying that, guys.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for being a listener.
Yeah, of course. So I think I'm scrolling through the list here to see if there's anybody else that I can put on the spot and make a little uncomfortable for a moment. But
I'll make myself completely uncomfortable.
Hey, Rebecca, do you have a question? or please contribute.
I am a total noob. I'm a user. And like at the house, I have a LiFX or LifeX, smart light bulb and a C by GE. And I just finished putting in a Hello doorbell where I had to put in a little transformer thing. And we've got this modern formed fan light thing that we had a bitch with time with. We got this little Google Home Mini now because the Lenovo stopped working. It wouldn't work with the doorbell, and our washing machine has IoT, but we don't have that turned on. And I'm dabbling with all this stuff because it's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I went to Sphero on a tour of the place just to see what their stuff was about. But I am wondering about basic home security, like not lights and things. I'm like, what should I do to my router? Who can come in and do what on me? And what should I do to deal with slow transmission at the house? Couple of Apple TVs.
Yeah, no, this is a pretty common problem with people, especially as they're getting into smart home components and consumer grade stuff, and then wanting to do a little bit more with blending it together. I know, depending on your financial appetites, there's a number of IT consultant groups in the area that would definitely be able to kind of help set that up. They're a little pricey because I think their primary customer are businesses. So the one that we use
to set it up for me. I want to learn.
Oh, so on the learning side, man, that is in all honesty, it's kind of a black hole when you start learning about protocols and environment setups and IT infrastructure.
I'm an old IT geek. I'm not completely unaware. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten in this deep. But
Yep.
I'm really just trying to help my 81-year-old mother who can hardly reach the light bulb anymore, can't get out of her chair fast enough to answer the door.
Got it.
She made friends with Hello Google or Hey Google. We're thrilled. Well, that's about it.
Yeah. So actually, Sean, I'm going to put you on the spot again. What have you recommended in the past at SparkFun for people that want to kind of get started with the whole IoT industry in general?
Are we talking about security mostly here, or just getting started with IoT and like tinkering with devices?
Well, Rebecca, it sounds like you're kind of doing both.
Yeah, I am. I'm fiddling, and I go to other people's homes and help them with stuff too, acting like I know what I'm doing, and I really don't. I need you guys.
Personally, in my experiences, like the light bulbs and a lot of the connected home devices aren't really worth a whole lot unless it's for like some type of assistive tech. Like if you're trying to help your grandmother, like, she can turn off lights from her bed or whatever it is because she has trouble getting up, then that's one thing. But for me, as much as I like tinkering with IoT, I actually stay away from a lot of the connected devices. Just avoid it. The less footprint you have, the more secure it's going to be. But I did recently install a camera in my place so I can check on it when I'm traveling. And that's pretty simple to do. It's just like something that sits inside on a countertop, right? That's a good IoT thing to have fun with. I love my Alexa. It has some potential security flaws in that, like, can Amazon listen to me, right? You can go read all about the news for that and how open that is. But like the Alexa and the camera, I think are good places to start. And the big one people tell you about security wise is to change your password on everything. Every single device you get a hold of, change your password. No device is going to be completely secure, but most hackers get in. Most of the time, what they're going to do is they're going to spy on you from a camera. They're not going to get a whole lot of information. A lot of times what they're doing is they want access to these devices so that they can run botnets, so that they can perform, attacks against other people. That's the biggest thing, is you don't want to be co-opted into, some type of botnet that a hacker is going to be doing. So the biggest, and what a lot of these things do is they just go around and looking for open passwords or default passwords on devices. So just anytime you get a device, change your password as best you can. Don't let it be default. But yeah, for me, like consumer devices, the only ones that I have found really good value out of is like the Echo, or Google Home, whichever, something I can talk to and say, call so and so, give me the news or play this song. That's really nice, like while you're cooking. And then like a camera for security things, like say if you're traveling and you want to check on your home, that one's actually been really, really good. But otherwise, yeah, I don't mess with like connected light bulbs. I think those are rather silly.
So there you go. I hope that was helpful, Rebecca.
It was. I'm pretty much, believe in that. Don't get into these. And if you're going to go into it, I've got one of this, one of that, one of the other thing, which is pretty annoying. But it does kind of lock you into like I'm in the Google ecosystem, sort of, more so than the Amazon ecosystem or whatever you do. And with iPhones and Macs and stuff, I'm also an Apple one. So you do kind of get where you want to buy the next product that works with the last products.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Once you play in the sandbox, you're better off getting stuff in that sandbox.
Yeah. Blending these things together. And there's been a number of companies that have tried. I'm not quite aware of too many that have been successful. I think Revolve had the closest, where they were trying to add a whole bunch of these different radios into a single device, and they ended up being sold to Nest years ago. But I haven't seen anything emerge that's been trying to do stuff like that to kind of blend between, except for if this then that, as being a kind of a proxy for a lot of this stuff. But Rebecca, if you have any other questions, or this is a great time to just reach out to some of the folks here. Feel free to send me a message, and then it's a great community to kind of troubleshoot and kind of hack on some of this stuff together.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. And Santiago, I see that you actually have your hand raised, and I wanted to call on you and see if there was anything specific that you were raising your hand there for.
Yeah, I was. I appreciate you noticing that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Wait, is that a 5tran shirt?
Yeah, it is. Do you know 5tran?
That's awesome. Taylor Brown and George Fraser are good friends of mine.
That's awesome. I'll let them know I was skipping some work meetings to join this.
Aha.
So cool. So you know about 5tran. You know what we do. I'm curious. Like IoT, we do have a few customers in the IoT space. These devices produce billions of rows of data constantly, right? From your experience, what has been like the most effective architecture to support IoT projects? Is that a data warehouse? Is that a BI tool? What has been, in your experience, the best process of pulling data from these technologies and organizing it in a meaningful way so that it can be analyzed and for analytics and for machine learning or whatever other projects can be done with it?
Yeah, from my experience, we were kind of building our own, just because this was at Misty Robotics and to a lesser degree at Sphero. We were pulling data from all the devices and then doing kind of an ETL process to get it into, in this case, I think it was just a Postgres database. And we didn't have enough devices to really warrant something like a data lake or a data warehouse. But then we were using Tableau to try to do some dashboard work and pull out some of the usage statistics and reporting. But that was, Harris, I know that you worked on this a little bit. It was brittle, to say the least. Lately, I've been looking at AWS IoT as being kind of a pretty good solution. Now, I haven't gotten to the point where the pricing has been an issue. Now, I thought I saw Travis from Helium. Yeah, hey. There you are, Travis.
Chris.
Hey, hi.
Actually, this is an area where my company works.
Oh, great, James. And then
That's why.
Travis, I want you guys to talk about like what you've experienced so far.
Actually, so I work for a data consultancy, Santiago. I also run a group called Hispanics in Technology here in Denver. So I'm mixed. I'm Irish and I'm Mexican. My mother is Latina. So
we met at Raíces.
No, that's right. Mucho gusto. Hey, so let me ask you, Santiago, how much is the revenue of the company that you're talking about? Let's start off there and work back. How big?
Do you mean like an example IoT company, or do you mean Fivetran?
No, the problem you're trying to solve, is this Fivetran's problem or is this for somebody else?
For somebody else. Sometimes we see like IoT companies doing things very manually, and they focus so many engineers on actually like collecting the data from the IoT devices and organizing it, and it really distracts them from like making better use of the data, right? Like spending the energy on the plumbing instead of on the modeling. I think the company size varies. So like a good customer of ours is like Lime, right? Like that, those devices, those scooters are producing data constantly.
And
they're decent size.
That tells me a lot. Okay, so one thing about it, you want to know how many different devices, you want to know the cadence of the devices, because that affects data quality. And then you also want to understand the layers that they want to add, because if you're just taking the basic IoT data, that could be just break and fix. That could be just like geolocation services, but to actually get the real context of it, you have to be able to layer it with other business data too. So yes, you need to homogenize or get all of their hands around the data sets, which could be in Informatica, which could be a bunch of other tools. But it's also, you have to also understand where they want to take it. If it's just the IoT part looking at it, I would say there's going to be big issues there, because that means they're not going to be able to take in their ERP. They're not going to be able to, again, cross over the data part of it. Maybe that's something we could talk about offline. Like I said, my company helps solve the back end data problems.
Yeah, James, what's the name of your company?
I work for a company out of Winnipeg called Integration Works. We're mainly an Informatica integrator, but I mean, when you're looking at enterprise IoT data, you have to, I mean, here's something to consider. So my additional part of background, I think I talked to you about this, Santiago, is I've done a lot of blockchain work in ag. So the state did a study on blockchain and food safety in rural ag department. I was vice chair of the study. So when you're looking at blockchain, it's all of IoT. IoT is the foundation of it. So you have to understand how it integrates, okay?
Awesome. Well, so James, thank you for that contribution. And Santiago, definitely connect up with James to maybe get a little bit deeper in that. I wanted to call out both Rich and Travis Teague, whoever wants to jump on first, because I know, Rich, you've done some data aggregate work in some of your projects.
Yeah, for us, it's, I guess James is kind of describing it. I mean, there's a lot of different ways, I think, to approach, right, what it is. And I think that certainly those other factors kind of come into play on how you want to solve it, because I don't think there's really a one size fits all. But I mean, because we've done it where we've ingested it, into different cloud stores, right? We've manipulated it and stored it. I mean, for some of the bigger stuff, you guys you mentioned using Tableau, I think it was, for some of the visualization, aspects of it. We did for our brew back here. Again, it wasn't like billions of rows of data or anything like that, but we're big fans of using the Elk Stack, for some of that stuff, because it has really good ingestion, and as well Kibana as kind of the display. They all work pretty well together. So those are some of the things that we've used.
Cool. Thanks, Rich. And then Travis, I'm gonna keep calling on you, man, because I think that you've seen a lot of this stuff out in the field. Can you chime in there? Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. One thing to think about when you're storing a lot of this data is how accurate you need. I mean, if we're doing time series data, then maybe I need, very small slices for the past 2 weeks, but maybe I don't need it for last month. Maybe I don't need it, for, for time periods in the past. And so you can look at, I don't know, services like Glacier. I know Amazon offers that allows you to kind of put into longer term storage. Like I still may need this data, but I don't need it to be as accurate, as far as time series is concerned. And so, and I also don't need to access it as frequently. And so I can pay a lower storage cost to kind of freeze that down and still have it available if I need to access this data. But you kind of pay a price, being able to jump in and query that. And so I think that if you're looking at like the tick stack or stacks such as that where you're dealing with time series data, it makes sense to have different segments where I'm going to push this data back into a different format that's going to be A, cheaper, and B, just easier on my servers.
Got it. Thanks, Travis. And for context, Travis is probably one of the most talented IoT developers that I've ever met. He's over at Helium, which is a LoRaWAN gateway, and I want to say blockchain because that's like a big part of how you guys do it. But
absolutely,
yeah, it's a really fascinating company doing some really pretty cool stuff. So definitely check out helium.com for some of their work.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's been a lot of fun playing with LoRa as an IoT device. And I want to go back here just for a moment because I know that Don, you had a question related to smart home business opportunities.
Hi, sorry. Let's see.
Good. Hi, Don.
I'm going to, let me see if I can just get the video going.
We see you.
Yeah. So I just got back from a bike ride. I was going to avoid video, but here I am.
It's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So I worked in the smart home area a little bit. I used to be with a consortium called Cable Labs out in Louisville, and we did R&D on smart home related as possible business for Comcast to get into, for example. And ultimately, those guys all walked away. So that business kind of didn't develop. And so all the things that Rebecca, all the problems she has, there is nobody, as you said, that really is out there to help you. But there's a business reason for that, and I could never understand why nobody really went after that business. So the reason I'm here now is I do consulting around energy devices for IoT, and that seems to be a good business if you're doing it either in cooperation with or selling to a utility, thermostats and other kinds of energy devices, and healthcare devices are pretty good. So when Santiago talked about Lime as a customer, so there's another kind of a category. I'm wondering what categories are working for people these days that it's kind of a general question to the group. What industry is happening?
Yeah, and there's a lot of from what I've seen, a lot of these categories are still very nascent. Agriculture in particular seems to be doing a lot of work. Municipalities, while a lot of them seem to be investing in smart city and some of these type of innovations, I haven't seen a project originate that's been like successful in that like they did more than a pilot, right? But beyond that, like you're spot on with utility. The problem with a lot of these companies that might have started with IoT as part of their DNA, as it were, have pivoted to pure software, mostly because the startup costs around hardware are very, very high. I think that I think that Rich in particular has figured out a way around this at SolderWorks, but we can talk about that in a whole other session. The other one that comes to mind is a company called Parcel, Parsyl, but they're doing supply chain management and data logging for just end-to-end shipping. And so in that industry, the analytics and tracking, it seems to be there's more growth and opportunities there.
Parsyl? P-A-R.
SYL. Yeah. Yeah. So they're really interesting, and they got their start by tracking the efficacy of vaccines. And so their customers have been like countries that want to make sure that their shipments from Genentech or whoever is the maker of these vaccines are coming through. But yeah, but ag seems to be a really big one. I know
It's gigantic.
Caterpillar, agriculture. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, James, I didn't.
If you want to, there's a if you want to see what's happening in ag tech around it, it's called Ag Funder.
Ag Funder.
AGFU. If you go into it, there's a company just recently, I think YieldX, that just got a 7.5 million round. I could go on about ag tech. There's a lot of interesting things. There's copyright there. Actually, a friend of mine is leading the IoT devices. I used to work with him at Alchemy API, IoT here. So, I mean, depends on what it comes down to. Is it just depends on the layer. There's break fix is out there. Has anybody seen the latest statistics? Is 2 years ago, like 50, 70, 80% of those projects fail, or what was something like that about break fix or predictive maintenance? Has that changed? Has that changed at all? I mean, like with ag, there is a lot of stuff happening. Ag, they're trying to get the efficiency. Actually, any manufacturing line. Here's something to consider. I keep on quoting it. If you go back to the Economist podcast, they said this a month ago. In the next 18 months, there's going to be as many changes to supply chain as you would see in 5 years. If you look at the legacy undercoring software and hardware of supply chain and manufacturing, there is a lot of IoT devices. You can walk into any manufacturing plant. There's IoT devices on there, but they're not getting their hands around the data.
Yeah. And that's so if anybody's interested in that, actually it's up now, but on Friday I did a conversation with Festo, who does a lot, like an incredible amount of work in the manufacturing facility. But both Steve Bain, who's local in Boulder, and oh man, I'm totally Joe Patton. Joe Patton? Yes. Sorry, Joe, if I forgot your name or got it wrong. But yeah, good people to reach out to if anybody's interested in that aspect of it, the manufacturing and the data side.
How do you spell that company?
FESTO.
Okay.
Yeah. So Don, did that kind of answer your question about business opportunities? And I think you were looking more in smart home area.
Right. I was looking more at, the promise of it. So I'm well aware of the history around manufacturing and it's IoT before IoT was cool.
Yeah. Yep.
But, was it, let's see, Rich, you mentioned Machine Q. You've done work with them. Right. So it's interesting that the biggest success they had early on was agriculture, just like James said. So that was pretty interesting. So yeah, I'm still, the idea that sensors in the home can do the things that Rebecca wanted them to do. I still think there's a pony in there. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah. I think the really big challenge there is somebody to come up with the orchestration piece. There's a John Kazura, if he's in here or if you encounter him, he was one of the founders at Revolve, but he expressed it so clearly to me that the problem with a lot of the smart home dreams and vision is that every manufacturer and every product company is trying to get you to buy into their ecosystem. But the goal and the vision that people buy into a smart home is that every addition makes your home more intelligent or opens up new opportunities. But that orchestration piece hasn't been done to where if I add a humidity sensor and a temperature sensor and a door sensor, like all the things that I could do are very difficult to piece together. So I think if somebody can figure out a way to, like, it's almost just a grind out integration play right now is kind of the unfortunate reality. At least as I see it. I'm curious if anybody else has different opinions on that.
I think we're seeing, Chris, if you don't mind if I jump in for a second.
Yeah.
I think with MQTT especially, and AWS's embracement of that within their IoT core, I think that's something that pretty much every device is going to speak. And it allows encryption and anonymity between broker and device. And I think it's a simple protocol, a simple secure protocol that's also very lightweight that we're seeing a lot of products get behind and kind of moving further away from more proprietary protocols, which I think is a great thing.
Definitely. Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't spent enough time with MQTT or MQTT and all that stack. But yeah, I'm hoping somebody solves it because that's what I want, really. I want the ability to automatically set the volume of my Alexa based on time, or if there's somebody in my kids' room that triggers all these events. And so I think the communication protocol is getting closer, but I think the orchestration and the intelligence behind how that should look is going to take a little bit of time. But there's definitely an opportunity there. So I wanted to go back. Joan, I saw that you asked a question about food industry automation, retail production. Do you want to articulate it a little bit more? If you're still on, I didn't see you. There you are. Yeah, you're still there. If you're still around, give me a chance to unmute. Okay. So Joan, do you want to articulate your question real quick? Okay. So Joan's question was really about resources for in the food industry, maybe around IoT and manufacturing in some sense. So good people to reach out to. Steve Bain at Festo is actually one of the. I don't know if he's a direct. I'm going to mess up your title, Steve, when you see this. But they're looking more to take some of the stuff they've done in heavy manufacturing and bring it into food safe and some of those areas that need some understanding of food safe plastics. Like, what are the things that are actually touching different parts of your food infrastructure, as it were, and knowing like when and where data can be collected. And I know that there's a number of consultants in the area that would help with if there's a data play there that you're thinking about. So yeah, good folks to reach out to. So that was the last question that I saw in chat. The next thing that I was kind of wanting to talk about a little bit was oh, sorry.
I do have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So I guess I posted as well. Maybe you didn't see that, but I was wondering whether anybody has experience or connection with how to license a patent. It's just to give a bit of context here. About 4 years ago, I started working on a project that trying to develop not really IoT mainstream, but using Bluetooth, Google Cloud, Firebase to connect and teach science lesson. But at the same time, I'm working on trying to patent that. So it's hardware is hard, education is hard. I end up not continuing that, but I continue to pursue the patent, and the patent itself almost already get a notice of allowance. So I don't plan to work on that anymore. So I'm trying to figure out, is there any way this is probably can be licensed or what? I mean, just want to throw that question.
Yeah. So there's a few resources that I'm aware of, and please, anybody else chime in. There's a organization in Boulder called I think it's called Patents Unlimited. Eureka is an excellent person for some of patent strategy. I don't know if you've had a chance to meet her. She's really involved in the community. Yep, she's a great person to reach out to. And then Rich, I'm blanking out on Gina's last name over at Dorsey.
Cornelio.
Yeah, Gina Cornelio at Dorsey. is a good person to at least talk to initially. I don't know if she would be the one to help with that strategy component, but she'd at least be able to give you a few resources. And we adore Gina. She's such a good, a wonderful member of the community. So thanks,
Dorsey
Gina, if you hear this.
Okay. How to spell it? I guess I think I.
I'll put her info on in the chat here in just a moment.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, or Rich, maybe you can do it. You're faster.
Sure.
Thanks. So we've had patents discussed. We've had compliance, a little bit of manufacturing. I'm curious if there's anything else that people are kind of trying to navigate or looking for some help. You can either raise your hand and articulate it or put it in chat. I'm happy to call it out. But in the meantime, there's two other things that I think are really valuable that I think a lot of, especially hardware folks, tend to overlook is some of the business resources that are available. Being in Boulder, we have Techstars and a lot of Techstars folks that we can directly reach out to, but they have the Techstars Entrepreneurial Toolkit, which offers kind of a really interesting take on, not interesting take, but really helpful to kind of articulate part of your business objective or any product or service that you're trying to create. So if you're in the early phases, I wouldn't say it's like it is not the way. There's a lot of ways, but it's really helpful in asking a lot of questions that you're probably going to encounter over the course of building out your company, your business, your product. For me, I went through Y Combinator with my previous business. So I always like to just add a counterpoint. So Y Combinator has their startup school, which is free, that you can, and I'll post the link here in just a moment. But it's really good. So Santiago, yeah. So I actually consulted George and Taylor. So this is Fivetran went through Y Combinator, and that's how I know they're founders. But yes, I had asked them what their experience was, and they spoke highly of it. I even forced George to recommend me to Y Combinator back in the day. But good folks. But for those that are getting started with their business, really beneficial to try to answer as many of these questions and think thoroughly of what your objectives are. And then there's Boomtown locally here as well. They have a deal with Comcast to sponsor a lot of connected devices. I personally mentor there. So for anybody that is looking for, something that might have more of an advertising or marketing approach, it's a really good place to kind of go and look and talk to folks there. But and it looks like we're coming down to the end here. Any last minute questions? Anything that we're dying to know? Otherwise,
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Hey, I'd just like to this has been a great session and connection and with people. I actually just want to do a shout out for another event tomorrow for Boulder Startup Week. 4 o'clock, we're going to be launching a new Slack workspace for people interested in developing physical products, IoT, robotics, anything hardware related, to kind of build up the ecosystem and make those connections, kind of like what you started here today, Chris. So good partnership on getting the sessions in order.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, thanks, Jenny. It's good to see you. You were hiding there in this list of folks.
Yeah.
And Jenny, are you still doing recruiting for hardware shops, or?
I'm gonna find out if I've never done recruiting. I've done operations management.
Sorry,
No,
right. My apologies. Yeah.
No worries, it's fine. No, I'm with the Zebulon Solutions, and so we're an end-to-end product development firm. And so we do a lot of stuff in the IoT space. We build up the back end of supply chain and sourcing and operations, quality, and all that. So, yeah.
Cool. I'm glad to hear that. Good stuff. Well, that's kind of the end of the session here. I really appreciate everybody taking the time. Again, reach out to me if you have anybody that you want to connect. This is going to go up, and I'll try to have those connections available in the description of the video. But be sure, Jenny, if you can post that a link to the event that you're talking about, that'd be super helpful in the chat here.
Yeah, just give me a sec.
Excellent, no problem. And then just because I'm running the IoT track, there is the How Not to Reinvent the Wheel event that I had a chance to talk to the Festo folks, that is going live Friday at 3 o'clock, but you can watch it anytime, and I'll post the link here as well. So genuinely appreciate everybody kind of coming and chatting. Be sure to connect. Community is the most important thing that we have here, and I think that we're really lucky. Not only have good, supportive people, but also a number of businesses and folks that are just generous with their time and experience. So go meet some folks. This is the best time to do it. Cool. Thanks, everybody. Keep in touch.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks,
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.